Naptown Tuner here. Help me out with that like and subscribe because only one video has been carrying my entire channel so far and it's petering out, so is my motivation. What we have here is an intake camshaft for a 2.0T TFSI direct injected turbocharged Audi/VW engine, and the intake camshaft, right? It sits on the intake side. And the intake side is the most prone to bending valves because the intake valves are bigger. This particular cylinder head I could not do anything with because it has scratched journals. If I take my thumb over here, it's got grooves and scratches, and it's bad enough to where it's not recoverable. I mean, someone would try to use this, but if I see any type of scratches that I can feel with my nail, then I don't reuse a cylinder head. I buy everything new. What happens is this camshaft bridge screen gets popped out and obstructs the oil flow through all these lifters, rockers, and then ultimately this channel right here that goes all the way through with these lifters. That's where the oil comes out in that journal right there. So if you have a restriction right here, you're gonna have scoring right here, 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 here. You get the idea. So this intake camshaft has the adjuster mechanism built on to the shaft itself. This is not replaceable. It's one piece. So it might not be a bad idea to replace the intake camshaft. The only problem is an aftermarket intake camshaft is gonna run you about $700. And an OEM camshaft is gonna run you over $1,000. They do look different enough, but the purpose of making this video is, since this intake camshaft has the adjuster built into it, you're gonna wanna, that's about normal play for a used camshaft. But if it's excessive, if this thing just goes clunk, 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 back and forth, I would say the adjuster mechanism is bad and it needs replaced. There's a locking pin that is supposed to engage until you get to a certain oil pressure, and then it unlocks, and then the oil pressure allows timing advance and retardation. So that's one thing. You know, I could go further on a different video about intake camshafts, but the actual purpose of this video in particular isn't about scoring, and it's not about the adjuster itself, but it's about what happens after you bend valves. Because when it comes out of time, this is called an interference engine. So these lobes right here are spinning, and that's what pushes these springs down and opens up these valves. And on this cylinder head, you can see that all the valves are extended all the way out, and they smashed, they're bent. That force gets applied directly to this camshaft. After it, you know, it smashes the rocker arms as well. That's why it's a smart idea to go ahead and replace the rocker arms and the lifters. But one thing I want you to pay close attention to if you're reusing a camshaft is not only the adjuster, not only the surface of your bearings, but I want you to pay attention to the lobes themselves. If you'll notice, you know, there's two valves per cylinder, you know, intake and exhaust. So this camshaft is running both of these intake valves. So both of these cam lobes are supposed to be perfectly timed. They're supposed to be in the absolute perfect alignment with each other. And you're gonna have to go like this and run your line of sight down the cam lobes as best you can. Now I want you to take a look at this camshaft right here. Looks perfectly fine, right? This one was actually cleaned up and polished at the machine shop, and I didn't notice anything was wrong with it until I went to install it. And then I took a closer look at it before installation, because I always do that. Cylinder 1 lobes. Actually, cylinder 1 lobes look like they're a little bit misaligned as well. I didn't even notice that before. This inside one right, or the furthest one in the back, is a little bit to the right. Now let's look at cylinder 2 lobes. Cylinder 2 is hard to tell, but it looks like it's slightly off as well. Cylinder 3 looks about perfect. Now let's look at cylinder 4. It might be a little bit hard to tell on the camera because I can kind of manipulate it, but by eye it's definitely evident that this cam lobe right here is shifted to the right, or maybe this one right here is shifted to the left. But let's take a look at the other side to see if you can tell that they're not aligned properly. You really have to get the line of sight correct. But you can see that the cam lobes there are shifted. So that's going to open the valves at slightly different times, and at higher RPM you could get a misfire. You might not notice something that subtle until you get to higher RPM, but I've seen them way further off than that because these camshaft lobes are just pressed on. They're not like welded on or cast on or anything like that. These are pressed on lobes, and whenever it bends the valves, they have nowhere to go, and it can potentially roll these cam lobes backwards, and they can be mistimed. So that's another misfire that you could assume after a catastrophic failure like this, if you do not replace the camshaft, or if you at least do not inspect it properly. Thanks, Naptown Tuner. Stay tuned for the next one. Now, someone in the comments asked me if I could whistle and diesel a camshaft, because Whistle and Diesel bought a couple Nissan Skylines, and one of them failed by actually snapping off this whole cam gear. And then he noticed how cheap and brittle this Tomy cam was. That's an aftermarket brand for Japanese stuff, I think. But you know, this is I don't know exactly who makes this. I don't think it's Audi. But if someone knows, you can tell me in the comments. But this is actually a strong camshaft. I really could use this as a hammer. It's not going to come apart. But I actually haven't tried this yet, so we're gonna smack this thing pretty good and use it as a hammer and see how. What did we do? Oh, we knocked off the gear. The gear completely knocked off there, but it's not going to break. Let's knock off some more gear on this side. Maybe I should be wearing safety glasses. So the gear is coming apart. That's interesting how it's coming apart in like its little phase thing. Let's try the other side. Let's see if I can spin the lobe just by trying to hit it like this. It takes quite a wallop to get it to spin. I guess I can't even really do it like that. I could probably spin it if I tried to put it in a vise and did stuff like that. But anyway, there you go. That's your video for today.